The Camino Primitivo was the very first of all the pilgrimages to Santiago de Compostela, and it dates back over 1,000 years in time. The popularity of this Camino is increasing, especially as the infrastructure is getting better. There's more private albergues becoming available in the towns and villages along the trail. The city of Oviedo is a historical starting point of this way, and the distance to Santiago is just over 320 kilometers. And between Oviedo and Lugo, there's some very testing but spectacular terrain that crosses the mountains of Asturias on its way to the mystical region of Galicia. The city of Oviedo is found in the northwest of Spain. It's huddled between the Cantabrian Mountains and the Bay of Biscay. The city was founded in 760 AD supposedly by two monks, Maximo and Fromestano, who established a shrine here and dedicated it to Saint Vincent. It was King Alfonso II who then established it as the region's capital and a strategic stronghold in the Cantabrian Mountains. During Alfonso's reign, the remains of St. James were discovered in Galicia, and it's said the king then travelled there to confirm this important religious discovery. Once he had verified the find, he ordered the building of the original basilica in Santiago to inter the apostles' remains. And so it was that King Alfonso II, also known as the Chaste, was responsible for that first pilgrimage route from Oviedo to Santiago de Compostela, which was called the Camino Primitivo, meaning the original way. These days, Oviedo is one of Spain's most important industrial centres. The mining of coal and iron ore from the mountains is a major industry here. The city has some interesting sites to explore, including a fine arts museum and a fascinating archaeological museum housing the region's riches and treasures. And it would be a shame not to take advantage of the delightful restaurants that litter the old town and enjoy the tapa or sidre that are part of the region's culture. It's the historical starting point of the Camino Primitivo, one which was used by pilgrims from Asturias as early as the 9th century. In its old medieval quarter lies the wonderful Gothic cathedral of San Salvador, and here a pilgrim will get their first stamp on the credencial as they set off on this spectacular 320-kilometre journey that crosses the mountains of Asturias and travels towards the green lands of Galicia. In the Plaza Alfonso, we come across the tile on the pavement, which tells us the direction we'll need to follow to start the next day's Camino. Our first stage is from Oviedo to San Juan de Villapenada, and it's over 30 kilometers long. The bronze Camino shells found leading away from the church on the town's streets and pavements will guide us out of the city early on. These shells appear at regular intervals for the first few kilometers, but a pilgrim will need to be vigilant. After crossing the railway tracks, you're almost out of the town and into the start of the nature. A short walk through some outer suburbs soon gives way to the start of our Camino. Once out of the city, the trail is on rolling hills, on quiet country lanes and dirt tracks. tiny village of Escamplero, with its small albergue, is only 13 kilometers from Oviedo, and some pilgrims who have taken a late start can stay here the night. But on this first day, the most popular night's destination will be the remote albergue at San Juan de Villapenada. This makes this stage a long day of walking. The large town of Grado is on the way and provides an opportunity to have a lunch stop and to restock with supplies. Because San Juan is in a lonely spot in the country and there's no shops or bars for any evening meal. The albergue is situated about 5 kilometers on from Grado, and after a long day, pilgrims will be tested here by the strenuous climb up to their night's accommodation. The albergue itself is very much a communal affair, and pilgrims here are encouraged to join in that spirit with a shared meal and a glass of wine to celebrate the end of a relatively tough first day on the Camino. The next stage of the Camino is from San Juan de Villapenada to Bodonea, and it's a distance of over 28 kilometers. The stage starts with a steep ascent up to the Alto del Fresno, with some glorious scenic views, before an equally steep descent to the bottom of the Narcea Valley, where the town of Cornellana and its magnificent monastery dedicated to San Salvador are located. After crossing the Narcea River to enter the town, there are bars in the main street for refreshments. The monastery here has a sizable pilgrim shelter inside its grounds for those pilgrims who want to spend the night. The attractive town of Salas and its medieval influence is our next stop. This is a sizable town with over 1,600 residents, so pilgrims will have all the necessary bars and shops for supplies. Those pilgrims who stayed the night at Escamplero could well find this their final stop for the stage. There's a private hostel called the Hostel de Salas, or Rooms, which will provide a night's accommodation. But those pilgrims who stopped in San Juan for their night might break their journey a little further on and stay in the tiny village of Bodonea. When we exit Salas, We do so via the impressive medieval tower that connects to the Palace de Salas and climb steeply into the hills. Not long after, we drop back to the road, travel through some smaller hamlets before arriving at Bodonea. This very popular albergue is well known for its friendly hospitalero and warm welcome for peregrinos. It has a great reputation on this Camino, and here everyone might well be eating, drinking, singing and dancing together into the early evening hours. After 2 long and difficult stages, our journey to Tineo is only 13 kilometers long. The trail passes through a number of smaller villages and mainly on quiet country roads. The peaceful town of Tineo is perched idyllically on a mountainside with wonderful views of the valleys below. The walk down and into this pueblo is very steep, and it'll test even the fittest peregrino's knees and joints. And it's worth noting that the walk out will be just as difficult. Tineo has a well-run municipal albergue at the very beginning of the town, and a luxurious private hotel, the Palacio de Miras, closer to the town's centre, which does pilgrim accommodation, and it offers a great menu del dia for the peregrino. With a population of over 10,000 inhabitants, it's one of the larger towns on this way, so it has all the shops, bars and restaurants a pilgrim will need for supplies. The stage from Tineo to Pola de Allande is over 28 kilometers long. The trail rises quickly in the morning as it heads on to the tiny hamlet of La Guardia, before dropping down and joining the tarmac as our journey navigates through a number of smaller villages. At the halfway point of this day, we come to the village of Campiello. Here, there are 2 very modern and well-stocked albergues for pilgrims who have chosen to walk the Hospitales route to Burdecado the following day. There are 2 routes to take to arrive at Burdequedo, and both involve climbing the mountain peak of Puerta de Payol. Both routes are incredibly picturesque, with wonderful mountain panoramas. If a pilgrim is considering climbing the Hospitales mountain, then they'll likely stay in either Campiella or Borés the night before. The route via the Hospitales is shorter than travelling on to Pola de Allende, but it's harder and without any villages along the way. The waymarking is very good and the views over the whole day will be wonderful. Pilgrims will need to stock up for the long hike across the mountain's rim the next morning. And be sure the weather forecast is good, because if visibility is poor, then the mist will mean there'll be no amazing scenic views. The alternative is to walk to Pola de Allende and climb the mountain the next morning. Those who choose to go on to Pola leave Campiella as a rest stop. We come to the waymarks showing the different routes a pilgrim can take. We've chosen Pola, and one of the advantages of this decision is this trail has a number of smaller villages along the way, which will allow a pilgrim to stop for refreshments and supplies. The next 10 kilometers will be a combination of nature and the blacktop as we navigate even more tiny hamlets, including Porquilles, which will have a bar at the beginning and one at the end of town. Eventually, we drop down to our night's accommodation. This small town of Pola de Allende was founded in the 13th century and it's bisected by the Neison River. It's surrounded by the Cantabrian Mountains and it has a population of less than 1,000 inhabitants. Pola has a sizable municipal albergue, and there are also 2 reasonably priced hotels in the town for those wanting some extra luxury. The stage from Pola to Burdequedo is about 19 kilometers long, and the early part of the trek involves walking through forests full of chestnut trees before emerging to the gorse and heather of the hillsides and a stunning climb over the pass of Puerta de Payol. There's a gradual ascent of almost 700 meters over 9 kilometers, and some of it will be on the blacktop. This stage is one of the most rewarding days of our Camino, and the panoramas when you reach the top and join the ladies will more than make up for the strenuous climb to get there. Today, we're enjoying the magnificent scenery of the mountains of Western Asturias and witnessing the rugged interior of the Asturias region, with the Cantabrian Mountains forming a natural border with the province of Leon to the south, and to the east are the spectacular Pico de Europa Mountains. This part of Spain is very well conserved, and the rugged terrain and rich vegetation make it a walker's paradise. To the north, pilgrims walking the Camino Norte will enjoy the region's extensive coastline, littered with hundreds of glorious beaches, coves and sea caves. Asturias has a population in excess of 1 million people, and its history can be traced back to Celtic influences. Fortunately today, the weather's remained fine because the locals will tell you that on a lot of occasions these wonderful views are shrouded by mist and cloud. Those pilgrims who decided to walk the Hospitales will have a long, strenuous climb in the morning to the summit, and from there a walk along the rim of the mountain for most of the day. They'll also arrive at the Puerta de Payol sometime, and then follow the same trail to Burdequedo as we do. Once over the top of the mountain, it's a long, sometimes steep descent to our village for the night. We pass through the tiny hamlet of Monteferrado, built into the side of the hills. And with its slate stone houses, this could well be a throwback to another era. Our final walk through some pine forests brings us to Burdicado, a tiny pueblo with a population of less than 200 people. The municipal albergue is the first building we arrive at when we enter the town. But there are 2 private albergues also which have been built especially for the growing pilgrim traffic. There are also 2 bars for meals, one of which includes a small shop for supplies. The trail from Burdicado to Grandes Salime is another very beautiful stage on this Camino, but maybe for different reasons. After 2 gradual but smaller climbs, the next part of the trail descends. This can be a very steep but incredibly scenic drop from the mountains, on dirt tracks lined with huge conifers. We visit the Embalse de Salime and witness the impressive hydroelectric dam that runs across the Navia River. This dam was built between 1948 and 1953, and the height above the foundation was over 130 meters, so that once stood as the largest dam in all of Spain and the 2nd largest in Europe. But the construction of the reservoir came at a cost, and it was necessary to flood over 700 hectares of land, and that included hundreds of farms and 40,000 trees. Today we come across hundreds of empty buildings that lie deserted as the population of this area dwindled at the end of the construction. After descending to the bridge over the reservoir, the walk is mainly on the road uphill until we reach the village of Grandes. The Hotel Las Grandes is a kilometre after the bridge, and this will be the only refreshment stop on the whole of the journey, so it's worth another visit to catch one last view of this amazing construction. Once in the town of Grandas, a pilgrim will have all the services available, as well as 2 large albergues, one private and one municipal. The museum might be an interesting place to visit here, and it takes the visitor back in time to the rural past, where one can see replicas of traditional taverns and barbershops, schools, a mill, other delightful items, all of which have been retrieved from local attics, barns, and other unexpected places from nearby villages. Our walk to Fonsagrada will be an easier day than some of the previous stages. The trail out of Grandas is mainly on the blacktop to begin with, passing through some smaller villages before arriving at Castro. Here there's another popular albergue, accommodations in an old stone house that comes complete with its own museum and a history that dates back to the Bronze Age. From Castro, the trail begins a long ascent to the Alto del Acebo, a mountain range that separates Asturias from Galicia. We climb through some glorious forests, and at the top of the Alto Cuescada, we arrive at the wind turbines that we saw early on at the beginning of our walk. We arrive at the crossing that separates the region of Asturias from Galicia. Galicia has a population in excess of 3 million inhabitants, and the name is taken from a race of people called the Galaici, who lived north of the Douro River thousands of years ago. This region is characterized by hilly mountains and rugged landscapes, and drowned river valleys that are found along the coast. The bar, the Casa Acebo, at the bottom of the hill, is a welcome stop after a long, hard morning. Our first sight of Fonsagrada appears on the horizon, but it's still well over 12 kilometers away. The next part of our walk are downhill. A lot of it will be running alongside the road and skirting some pine forests. The scallop shells that appear on the malariums have now changed direction, so we must remember the difference as we proceed. When we eventually arrive at the town, it's on top of a hill, so it's another sharp ascent of almost 100 meters before we finally get into the large pueblo. Fonsagrada is a market town in the province of Luge and has a population of 5,000 inhabitants. For pilgrims, there are 2 albergues here and a large number of shops and bars for that evening meal. From Fonsagrada to Cadavo, the trail includes some very pretty walking, mainly on dirt tracks but through forests of pine, beech and birch. We start with a climb to the wind farms of Montuto, and at a height of over 1,000 meters, more breathtaking views of the Spanish countryside. The sharp descent to Paradivella is along the forest tracks, and this village provides a bar stop for that morning break. Most of our day, however, is spent in glorious pastureland with wonderful mountain panoramas. But the stage won't be easy, and there's some hard climbs and descents. After the village of Fontanera, there's another bar stop, and the trail will be all downhill from here. It's just past here there's a small plateau known as the Campo de Matanza, which according to legend was where King Alfonso II and his troops defeated a Muslim invasion in the year 813. Cadavo is mostly an agricultural town, and the main industry here is dairy. The town has a large municipal albergue, as well as some friendly pilgrim hostels, all reasonably priced. There's also a large supermarket and a number of pilgrim-friendly bars. On the way to Lugo, we start with a climb to the Alto de Vaqueria, and probably the last chance on this Camino to admire the wonderful mountain scenescapes that have been our daily blessing so far. Our journey will now be a gradual descent over rolling hills. The walk is on a mix of dirt farm tracks and quiet country roads. We go past the little town of Castroverde, which can be a nice stopover for pilgrims who wish to break their journey and have a coffee con leche with some tostados. This will be the last place to stop for refreshments before we reach the city of Lugo. From Castroverde, we move through a number of smaller hamlets and villages. Lugo is a large city with a population in excess of 100,000 inhabitants. It's just over 100 kilometers from Santiago, which makes it a popular starting point for pilgrims wanting to obtain their Compostela. It's the only city in the world that has an intact Roman wall around the entire length of the city. And if a pilgrim has any energy left, he or she might like to walk the 2-kilometer perimeter and pass the 71 towers that circle the city. During the Middle Ages, Lugo was an important centre of the pilgrimage, and it's an integral part of the Camino. The cathedral, dedicated to St. Mary, enjoys the privilege of having the Blessed Sacrament perpetually exposed. It has a multi-storey albergue, which is very modern and capable of accommodating over 100 pilgrims. In the Plaza Mayor, a pilgrim will have all the bars and restaurants they need for a wonderful menu del dia. When we leave Lugo, we exit the walled city via the Mina Gate, and our trail crosses the old Roman bridge before moving on to the streets and roads of the residential areas surrounding the city. Today, we move from village to village, passing the many small farms that are typical of the Galician countryside. And a pilgrim will sometimes have to share the path with an unexpected visitor. Our shorter day finally leads us to the small church at San Román de Retorta, where we'll find a bar for refreshments and a tiny albergue nestled in a pine forest. This albergue only sleeps about 12 people, so these days many pilgrims will move on to Ferreira, which has 2 albergues and a bar. On the last day of our Camino, the trail will be very flat. The majority of it will be on-road. We pass the church of San Vicente de Burgo, which dates back to the 18th century, before crossing the River Ferreira. And here are the 2 new albergues that have opened up to cater for the increased pilgrim traffic. Our journey proceeds along the tarmac and crosses a number of smaller rivers before entering the large town of Melide. This is the last major town before Santiago, and it's here that the Camino Primitivo joins with the Camino Frances. It's a large pueblo and the population of almost 8,000 inhabitants. And because of the convergence of the 2 ways, the town has a number of albergues and private hostels to cater for that bigger group of pilgrims. Tourism here has played a major role in Melide's economy. And so our Primitivo is at an end, and on the remainder of our journey, we will join the hundreds of pilgrims who will be travelling daily from here to Santiago de Compostela on the Camino Frances.